Hey Adam, how you doing?
Hi, Joey. I'm doing great. And welcome everyone to episode 6 of the Peplink podcast. We've got a really special guest with us this week, haven't we, Joey?
Yes. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think this is one of the OG Peplink guys. I think he's definitely one that everybody knows who's ever been on the forum. So that's going to be great. I'm really excited to show everyone who we got for this month's episode's guest.
Well, let's not wait. Let's just bring him straight in. Can we welcome Martin from Venn? Thank you, Martin, for joining us this morning.
Hello, guys. How are we doing? Good, nice to be here.
Really, really good. I say that yellow room really suits you.
You can see it sets off my eyes, doesn't it? Absolutely.
It really does. It's really, really good. Martin, you're obviously no stranger to Peplink, and most of us know who you are already. We've kind of been brought up with you. It's this illustrious leader of Peplink technology. Maybe you can just tell us a bit about your background with Peplink for those people that don't know. When you first got introduced to Peplink, the first device that you remember using, and your Peplink journey to where you are now. But keep it brief, because I know there's a lot to tell.
That's a long story. Be as brief as I can. So I used to run enterprise networks, a network manager, IT manager for an organization in the UK. And we had about 37 sites across the UK. And we were doing the traditional thing of having MPLS networks provided by a managed service provider. And it was fine, but expensive. And then we went through this big period of growth, and the managed service provider couldn't keep up. They couldn't keep up with the number of office changes and moves, and we would move into an office, staff would double, we'd have to move next door, and they couldn't cope with the need for internet connectivity to be delivered quickly and the increase in bandwidth that was needed too. So we decided to bring it in-house, and we tried other vendor products, which let us get started. We could deploy site-to-site VPN, IPsec VPN, it worked. But when I needed more bandwidth, things got more complicated. I couldn't combine multiple links together for that VPN, which led me to Google search, of course, and I discovered Peplink. And their products looked really interesting. They were talking about speed fusion. This was back in 2010, probably, around about that sort of time. And I thought, this could be it. This could solve all of our problems. So I convinced my boss to let me place quite a significant order of balanced 210s and 380s and 580s, I think it was, to give them a test. And they arrived. I got them out on the desk. They looked fantastic. I plugged them in. We had a couple of test connections. Maybe 40 minutes after the boxes had arrived, I was bonding multiple DSL circuits, and it was flawless. And that was the moment, literally, that I thought to myself, I have to tell the world about this stuff. This is amazing. This will change everything. And so that's what I did. We deployed across all of our sites in the UK. That went very well indeed. And I started building websites to try and sell Peplink. I was pestering them every day, asking them for details about data sheets and the next products coming, and could I get involved and how could I help. And I think at one point I built a website which was an online store, and Peplink then came and talked to me and said, look, you can't host an online store with our name in the domain name. Let's take that down, but come and work with us and let's see what we could do. So I joined Peplink, and I became initially sort of a sales engineer. I was talking to customers and helping explain what Peplink did and drawing diagrams. And a lot of the diagrams are still used by partners today, I think, that kind of how bonding works and how you connect multiple sites. And it was a lot of fun, and that led me into wanting to become my own reseller, which I did, and set up in the UK, which was a lot of fun, and did lots of really interesting projects, lots of fanciful deployments all over the world, really testing and challenging Peplink technologies to do incredible things in new ways. Then I moved on from that, and I've moved here to Venn Telecom, CTO here. And the benefit of Venn for me is that I get to do this globally now. We've got offices all over the world. We're deploying in Brazil, in the US, all across Europe, in Asia. And really we're focusing on, ironically, exactly the same thing today as I did in 2010. I'm enabling reliable, redundant connectivity over multiple links in a way that is operationally fantastic, easy to use, simple, cost effective, and is dramatically different to all the other options. It's the same story and it's the same love of Peplink today as I had back then. And I'm still, as you say, talking about it, showing people and trying to educate, and you'll find me on the forum most days answering questions when I can.
I think the community is perhaps one of the most unique things about the Peplink product. I don't know of another vendor that has the kind of community that Peplink has, where the product's driven by the community, the challenges are solved by the community. I think it's really interesting, all those challenges that are out there, and Peplink have most probably got the solution to solve those challenges when it comes to connectivity. I think that's what's keeping us all really interested in the product and help driving it as well.
I would definitely agree with that. It's very rare, I think, to see a question being asked by a forum user in a community situation like that, like we have at Peplink. And for multiple engineers from the company to ask questions and consider the options. And then for normally the answer to that question, whether it be a firmware change or a product development, is considered, it's evaluated, and it's normally delivered very, very quickly. I haven't done this analysis. I really wish I could. That kind of when somebody asks a question and how quickly do they get the firmware change or the new product. Personally, I've been in some really tough corners with customers, and I've needed a feature to solve a particular challenge in their environment, and I've asked for it, and it's happened very, very quickly, often within days, when there's an opportunity or a challenge that causes risk to a project. So, yeah, the Peplink community is second to none, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's super crazy. And also, I had a question for Michael Chan from the In-Control team, and he just replied to me on emails like, "Oh yeah, that's doable. Let's give me a week," and they added it in. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And also, I think the Peplink team also part of the success that there's such a great community is because Peplink is also engaging a lot on the forum as well. I see people like literally engineers, support engineers, or like R&D engineers or software engineers talking to their customer base on the forum. So that kind of like they do that even in their off hours. So all of those excitement from Peplink themselves already helps or contributes a lot to this kind of community. I agree, it's super great. And also, I know that there is a really, really large backlog of all the feature requests that they have. So for all the people listening and watching, if your feature request has not yet been answered yet, there is a huge backlog for the engineers. So, but again, let us know if you want to be highlighted on any features, for example.
And that is the benefit of the forum, isn't it? We see a feature being requested, and if lots of people need it and want it, there's a lot of interest in that particular forum post, and it raises the priority of that, I think, in many ways, and lets the right things get developed first or fast. Yeah. Like you just said, there are some features that are outstanding that I've asked for perhaps many years, because actually I just needed it for one thing, for one customer, and perhaps that's not justifiable. But when you come with something really useful, and Starlink is a great example of that, when we had Starlink enter into our world, into our market, and all of us went to Peplink and said, we need to integrate with Starlink very, very quickly. What can you do? They reacted so fast. They had all of that capability available in the product and in control so quickly. It was truly impressive.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, huge hats off to the Peplink.
So we're going to jump straight into the first section. It is all about Peplink stories. I've got a quick story I'd like to share with something I was speaking to Peplink about this week. As one of their support engineers, and he was telling me about they don't have any other internet connectivity at their support office other than a dual cellular modem. Of course, it's a Peplink, but they're that confident with their own product, as they should be. We all like Peplink, that that's all they have to use, and it works really, really well for them, and much better than the fibre that was going to cost them an absolute bomb. And this is quite common in certain types of offices or certain areas where fibre lines do cost a lot of money to get in, or sometimes you can't put antennas on the roof for things like Starlink. So it's definitely still a place for cellular in this world. But I thought that was a really interesting story that even Peplink themselves have the confidence in the product to use that purely for their support.
All right. That's
Pretty
interesting.
impressive, right? Yeah,
Yes.
and that idea of the fibre not always being top quality in those kind of locations, we see that in quite a few places across Europe, actually, where you would expect fibre to be great, and it's not. And actually, if you sprinkle in some cellular, you kind of fix the problem. So I can well believe it.
Do you think this is because there's a lot of altnet providers, alternative providers, that perhaps don't build the network to telecom spec? So you end up with something that, although it's low cost, it's not necessarily good grade, good quality.
It's always that last mile piece, isn't it? You know, the way the fibre routes. Sometimes it's fibre to the cabinet rather than fibre to the home or fibre to the business, and it's that last segment that's always running through some slightly loose box on the outside of the building that when it rains, it causes a problem or something like that. So yeah, it's very rarely, I think, the actual fibre network itself. It's always that last piece and how well the engineers done their job, I think.
I've always said I'd far sooner have two really bad internet connections and join them together to make a perfect one than just one single network connection.
Yep.
Well, we're uniquely placed, aren't we, with the Peplink technologies to be able to do that.
I say that, Martin. I know you've got an interesting story to share, which did start with two connections, and you went down to one.
Yes. So this is we're doing a couple of really interesting projects in Brazil at the moment, in the mines there, and there's a real appetite for automation and teleoperation to reduce the health and safety impact, but also to increase efficiencies in those kind of spaces. And so one of the projects we're doing out there is teleoperated dump trucks in mines. And really we wanted to do this over Starlink alone. But as you know, sometimes on a Starlink circuit, you're going to see some packet loss and some variable latency. And so we're thinking, well, we definitely need to put two of those on board and bond them and clean up the link and get rid of that packet loss and stabilize latency. And we did that, and it worked great. But actually what we discovered was we could take one of those dishes away, leave it with a single Starlink dish, and with forward error correction and a bit of packet duplication, we got rid of all of the issues that you'd see on a single Starlink and enabled that vehicles be remotely driven. And the difference was really stark. But before Peplink, when they were just trying to use the Starlink themselves and running their IT infrastructure over that, the OT infrastructure, they were driving for about 4 or 5 minutes before there was significant issues and they had to stop. And then after we brought Peplink into the mix and did all of that forward error correction, I think they drove for nearly an hour without any interruptions. So it's really impressive what you can do, even with a single poor quality link, if you sprinkle on a little bit of that SpeedFusion magic.
Did you get to drive the dump trucks?
Oh, sadly not.
That would be my dream, that would. Every little boy inside us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd love to. And when you see the setups and the multi-screen and all of the controls, it does look like a lot of fun.
So I'm picturing here a dump truck with a Starlink on the top. What is it? A high performance flat or something?
It was.
Down into some Peplink router, which really is, and you're not using the cellular on there. You're just relying on the Starlink. So
this was specifically a Starlink trial, but at the same time, naturally, there's cellular in some parts of the mine, normally at the very top, and also they deploy Wi-Fi networks of different types, actually, to infill the coverage areas, because those kind of mines have lots of RF shadows. So the end solution is actually Starlink and private and public cellular and then Wi-Fi all bonded together. But the trial we were working on was really to see what we could do with a single Starlink or Starlink alone and see whether that was enough. And it was.
I mean, that's quite good when you can sort of do proof of concepts at that low price point and say, look, let's try this solution. Let's show you what we can do with this. And then you're adding in all the extra redundancy after that and saying, well, now here's your unbreakable connection. This is now foolproof. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and that idea then of just being able to drop in whatever connectivity you've got available that is easy to deploy in that situation, whether it be a solar powered wireless point to point bridge and then an access point, or indeed, a private cellular node, you've got all of that options and that you can consider to infill these RF shadows in those mines. It's very clever. And it gives them operational efficiencies that they just haven't seen before, because they can do whatever's best for them commercially and operationally all over the site.
What do you think, Joey?
I think it's really interesting. I'm really curious about to know where did they place that Starlink, because most of those dump trucks have really large, like an overhead of that bucket that they are putting the rocks, the earth, the pay dirt that they put in there. So did you put that Starlink literally on top of that bucket, like the truck bed?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, there were a couple of different trucks actually, and I must dig out the photos and double check, but the pretty sure it was on the overhead. Yeah, and where the truck dumps effectively after it's come back up the mine, that area was covered with Wi-Fi. So it meant that as it dumped and potentially the Starlink lost connection, we seamlessly fell over to Wi-Fi and kept the vehicle connected. So it was pretty neat.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, those things are large. If you look at a video or something, you're like, oh, okay, nice truck. But if you stand beside them, you're not even going halfway through those. Like a normal sized person would not reach like the top of those wheels even. So it's crazy how big those things are. So yeah, I'm really interesting to know when they are driving around, if there's like, how do you, with the Wi-Fi and the cellular, of course, it must be a really pain in the ass to like get that connection really good, because they are big. They're themselves blocking a lot of those signals, and most of the infrastructure on the trucks is, of course, in the front, and all of those LiDAR systems and stuff like that, everything is on the front. So I think you have to get something like a Starlink or anything that's LEO, MEO to make this work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, in this trial case, we were fitted to some of the smaller trucks, more for sort of 40-ton trucks rather than the 400-ton trucks.
The smaller trucks.
Yeah, indeed. And but when we looked at the project, it really is very much like a ship on land, right? The amount of infrastructure, the size, the amount of shadows that the vehicle itself casts when it comes to RF and visibility of the sky and visibility of access points is very similar to maritime, actually. So you just end up putting your wireless antennas on the corners as best you can of the vehicle diagonally, so that you've got good potential to get access to those access points. And you don't learn this or understand it until you actually get on site and play and test and try. And that's really part of the joy of this, isn't it? It's trying something new and bolting stuff on and gaffer taping it to the side of the vehicle and seeing what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Really also interesting. Sorry.
Also, the reference to ships is very, very useful, because you probably can now, I think at the time the Max antenna was not yet ready, but you could fit 2 BR1 Mini 5Gs on either side of the truck with the Max antenna. It's super, super easy, clean install then. But if you run the cables, that must be a really pain as well to run those cables, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. So anything like that where you can reduce the complexity of the install, which then reduces the maintenance overhead over time as well, of course, is well worth doing. And the antenna enclosures and the direction that we're going in when it comes to Peplink is really good. That single Ethernet, Cat6 connection, armored in these kind of cases, of course, to power and get the data, the virtual WANs, all of those possibilities over those single links to these enclosures really opens up some neat installation possibilities. And at a cost point that's, you save on the installation costs and the cabling costs significantly when you move to that kind of model.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, the BR1 Mini 5G is you can power that via PoE. Although for the BO1 Pro 5G, there will be a splitter available. But you also have that remote SIM option and eSIM, or Peplink's eSIM as well. So loads of SIM card options with the Peplinks as well for a NetMax antenna, which makes it also super useful to use in situations where you have different, or you're like at the edge of different cell operators, at the edge of their range, so you can switch around with them as well. So that could be really useful as well. It makes for a good install.
Definitely does.
That's really, really interesting. Next section we're going to talk about is Peplink news. We've got quite a bit of news this month, haven't we, Joey?
Yes. Where do we start, Adam? Where do we start? Should we start with the most interesting but also most talked about thing, the switches, and especially the switch controller?
Go on, let's talk about switches.
Well, everybody knows from the last episode that we talked a bit about the switches and what's coming, and Peplink on the forum are being really active about it. So the switch controller is confirmed to be there in 8.5.2 firmware. So that means that with the new firmware, the beta will be released probably at the time this episode airs. It's scheduled for end of the month of February. Of course, if there is any delays, then it will be after this episode. But yeah, we will be doing, by the way, a special episode on 8.5.2. But the switch controller will enable you to manage your switches just like you do with the access point controller. You manage the access points. So, Martin, what is your take on the switch controller?
I think it's a great example of Peplink listening to the community and realizing that they needed to provide a solution for those customers that don't use in control and need to use local management. And they reacted very, very fast to that. We talk about how well they listen and how well they work with the community. That forum post is just a perfect representation of it. You know, they're talking about a new product, people challenging actually the way that they were going to go about delivering it and the features, them listening, coming back, and then reacting very, very quickly with a new set of features, in this case, the switch controller. So I think it's great. And that promise of the switches being usable and controllable in lots of different ways, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the product evolves.
I think it's also worth pointing out they're not abandoning the user interface at all on the switches. That's still on the roadmap. That's still going to happen. But it has to be done in certain stages. They needed to get this product out quick. The easiest way was to fulfill the requirements of the majority of people, which was in control, which is a fabulous platform. Other people in the community, as you say, have piped up and said, look, we need another way to control this as well. That's when the switch controllers come out, which gives them the most of it. And then, I dare say, pretty quick, we'll see the user interface coming out. And we're back to where we were with the original switches, plus more, because the original switches didn't have a switch controller.
Indeed. So, the next one is the BO1 Mini 5G with Wi-Fi. That is an existing product, but now with Wi-Fi. So the previous BO1 Mini 5G didn't have any Wi-Fi, GPS, but this one will have Wi-Fi.
How did they fit it in? And this is a small box to begin with.
Yes, I know. That's the reason, maybe some background on that. The reason why they didn't have Wi-Fi in it, because indeed the PCB was full, the enclosure had to house 4 of those antenna connectors, which normally you only have 2 with the BO1 Mini 4G version. So yeah, I'm really surprised, and it looks really nice though.
So when are those going to be available?
I think they're going to be available around mid of February. So when we're recording this episode, it's like a few days from now. So when this episode will air, they already launched it officially.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good product. And again, it comes in the metal case. It's going to be a very rugged product again. And it's going to fit into a lot of situations where the larger product wouldn't before. And I dare say the price point's probably quite good as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Mini inside of the Antenna Max enclosure is an astonishingly well proportioned and priced and capable solution, right? That's going to be very useful and very heavily deployed, I'm sure.
Okay, Joey, what's our next bit of news?
So the next bit is major updates to the Authorized Solution Provider program with Starlink. So I think this is also pretty good news. I might need to add a drum roll to this because the Enterprise Kit is now available as part of that program.
Brilliant. So it's
Yeah.
no longer reduced. So it's no longer just the high performance flat. We can get the enterprise dish as well now.
Yes, indeed. The Enterprise is a bit different from the flat high performance. It has a little bit of a lesser field of view. So because it's a bit smaller, the high performance is really wide as well. This one is a bit smaller. So the high performance will be still available in the program, of course, and it will still be the best fit for maritime applications. But for applications that you have a fixed location, for example, that's where you can use that enterprise dish.
Exciting. I'm going to test you both now. So what field of view does a flat high performance have?
I think it's 65 degrees.
No.
No, it's 140, isn't it?
I think it's 140.
Yeah.
And what does the enterprise kit have?
110 or 110.
Oh, I thought it was 120, the enterprise kit.
Flat high performance. I'm looking this up because I already put the
I
wrong
think that's
answer
what you
in,
should
but
look it up.
it's 140 for the flat high performance. 140 degrees. Field of view.
Yes. That's a bit bigger than 65.
Yeah, I know. I was looking only at the one side. And then you need to double that, of course. That's why. Then I'm really close. But
Come on, Astro Joe. You've got this.
and then the Enterprise is 110.
So I was wrong. It was 110.
Yes.
These are still significant things. I think at some point we do need to do a little in-depth look at how Starlink actually works and how the beamform works and why those degrees are actually important. It's really quite interesting when you compare it to other satellite solutions like VSAT and things, which have to be directly pointed, and how this works. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
There's some other bits are being announced as well on the program, isn't there, Joey? There's a option to get some discounts and some bonus credits on certain devices. I know that if you get a BR1 Pro, BR2 Pro and MBX, there is a discount available if you take a Starlink dish at the same time, as well as a bonus credit later. And to find out what those are, it's probably best to reach out to who you buy your Peplink kit from, your distributor, your channel partner, reseller, and they should have more information.
Yep. If you are an authorized solution provider, there's also a forum post about it for those authorized solution provider. And there's all the data as well.
Good. Have we got any other news, Joey?
No, that's it for today.
Unless Martin's got anything that he's hiding.
Nothing I'm hiding, no.
All right, Adam, I cannot wait for this. Another Adam joke. What have you come up with today?
Well, I was going to tell you a joke about UDP, but I was worried you guys wouldn't get it. Anyway, why do horses like using Peplink so much?
I don't know.
No idea.
Because it provides a really stable connection.
Although,
I knew it's going to be even worse when you said UDP, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a really good one. But
if anybody doesn't get the UDP joke, please feel free to comment, and I'm sure people will explain why that was funny.
okay,
It's a hard joke
2
to
and
get.
1 today. 2 and 1 today. I'm impressed. Okay. All right, let's get back to serious business, Adam. You have any tips and tricks that you want to share today?
No, but I believe you have one.
Yes, I have.
Come on, Joey. This is actually one which you've missed from a while ago, isn't it? This is one that we perhaps should have included ages ago, and you've only just realised.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. No. Well, I've actually asked for this when this firmware was released, because what we're talking about is the eSIM activation via the in-control API. I have asked for this already when 8.4.2 was launched, but it was not yet included into the documentation for the in-control API. But you can activate an eSIM via the API in control, but you need to have firmware 8.4.2 minimum for this to work. And with all the bug fixes and all the improvements the Peplink team make, I would definitely recommend to at least have 8.5.0 or 8.5.1, because a lot of eSIM changes, but also with synergy mode and stuff like that, have been added to those firmware. So the best is to use the latest firmware. But I think this is something that we recently worked on for a customer. So I just got to work with it. Dylan, my colleague in the technical team here, also worked a lot with it. So this is a really good one that if you have a massive scale operation, you need to create a lot of or send a lot of eSIM profiles to a batch of routers, then you can create a script for it with the API. So I think this is very useful. Martin, what do you think about this?
Of course, I'm always joyful when more API endpoints are added to the in-control platform. It's such a force multiplier for us when we can interact with hundreds and thousands of devices and get that data in and out and make those changes quickly when we need to. So every new API endpoint is just happiness to my ears. And this will definitely be useful too.
Yeah, definitely. Martin, do you have any tips and tricks you want to share with us?
Just a simple one, something that I do quite regularly, and when I need it, I am very grateful that I've prepared myself. Whenever I ship a device to a location, I'm really not sure about whether I'm going to get connectivity straight away when it comes out of the box. Recently, we've done a lot of telemedicine kind of work, and the devices are turned on inside of hospitals or in the middle of nowhere, and you think, well, I'm not sure what's going to be there and whether we've got access to the cellular network or anything else. I pre-configure a Wi-Fi WAN profile with a known, it's looking for a known SSID, and it's got a pre-configured password. And I tell the engineers or the people on site that if they need to, if I need to get remote access, they can turn on a hotspot on their phone and set it to that same SSID and password, and then I can connect via their phone and get remote access to the router to see what the options are, how I can potentially manage it or get connected in a new way. So that's really helpful and something I do as standard now.
I think that's a really good one. I've not thought about that with the hotspot. I knew we were going with the Wi-Fi and you can pre-configure that, but using the hotspot on your phone, it's so simple, but that's really nice. That's really nice. Thanks for sharing. Thanks. I think that's a really useful one. And that's something that can be really useful when situations you have no cellular issues, let's say it like that, but the phone is working, then we can ask a customer to do that. Yeah, that's really great. Thanks. All right, Adam, feature time or feature request highlight. So you had 2 features that you want to highlight today. Please enroll them or tell them.
Well, so like Martin, I can't keep away from the forum, and I'm always looking at stuff on there to comment on and talk about. And there's a couple this time that have really caught my attention. The first one is somebody asking for DHCP on the SpeedFusion hub. Now, perhaps we can break this down a little bit first of all as to what the SpeedFusion hub is, or SpeedFusion Solo, or the various different versions that they've got. But it was always designed as a bit of a connection concentrator, wasn't it? To be able to connect your edge devices into a central point, which is why there's only really one WAN on there, and there's very basic features. It's so you can basically get on board and start using FusionHub straight away, and SpeedFusion and things like that. But there isn't really a DHCP server on there, and sometimes you want a DHCP server because you're establishing layer 2 networks and things like that. There is actually a DHCP server on there already, but it's only usable when you use SpeedFusion connection with NAT enabled, which is quite good, but it doesn't work for anything else. It may work for some other VPN profiles on there, I don't know. There's maybe some remote access stuff, but it won't work across the layer 2 segment. But I don't know, have you got any thoughts on that, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, the ability to do layer 2 bridging between remote devices and a hub, particularly when those remote devices are on cellular, so they can only do outbound connections. So you want to have a device in the middle that bridges them like that is something that I do very regularly. And honestly, I'm often doing it when I'm in a mess and I need to get to a device that hasn't got a gateway set, and I need to get into a remote network to access that thing over InTouch to fix a problem. And in those kind of situations, it's fine. We don't need DHCP for that. But when you want to have a permanent install and you want to have a reliable layer 2 link between two locations, and you want to make that as simple as possible, having the DHCP server in the hub component makes a lot of sense, because that's super reliable, it's in the cloud, it doesn't get disconnected, whereas the remote sites do. And the alternative, the only option we have today, is really to run DHCP on each of the remote locations, and that can get messy. You have to split a subnet or risk an overlap. So I'd love to see the DHCP on the LAN properly for these layer 2 links on the FusionHub.
So we'll put these, we can put this in the notes, can't we, Joey, at the bottom, put these in the description, in case this
for sure
resonates with you as well, and you think, do you know what, I actually would quite like DHCP available on the LAN on the FusionHub as well. I know that certainly gets my endorsement.
Mine too.
So the next one that caught my eye, and I know it's caught your eye as well, and Captain Nick's, because it seems to be us three all commenting on it, is the ability to select different cellular WANs for outbound policy setups. So I should probably break this down a little bit more. This is down to a user that was perhaps having problems accessing their device through in control or something, because the WANs were working, or at least they thought they were working. He just felt there'd be a nice way to have a failover that was checking whether I can access in control on a certain WAN connection. And if that doesn't work, fail over to another WAN connection, fail over to another WAN connection. But not just doing it on WANs, doing it on SIM card level as well. So actually checking each of those SIM cards in order. I don't actually know how possible it would be to check each of the SIM cards, because the SIM card you're connected with is the SIM card that you're using. But it was a way of having that ultimate failover that you could still get back to it on in control. I think we've all had fun before when we've lost connection to in control, but we still know the device is there. And I know we've all probably done some quite clever geeky ways to get back into devices and looping back through WAN ports of other Peplink routers and things like that. But I'd be interested to hear both of your thoughts on this. Perhaps, Joey, you'd like to make some comments, as you've made some comments on this already.
Yeah, well, I think it's very useful to many different situations, and I think this needs to be dynamic as well, because in so many different scenarios, you have so many different WAN options. So yeah, I think it is interesting. And also there is something like the bandwidth allowance monitor that I put also in there as well. It's like, could be really similar to what they use, like when you reserve for management traffic when usage hits 100% of monthly allowance. Something like that would be really good.
I know I've done an outbound policy before, which is going to something like peplink.com and just looking at different priority levels on that, or have some kind of round robins. There's other ways of doing that. So have you got any thoughts as well, Martin?
The ability to maintain a connection to a control, and then the subsequent facility that gives you, the visibility, the remote management is so important that you definitely want to build a really reliable way to make sure it stays contained or connected. And today we do that with outbound policy. We build a set of rules that really verify that in-control traffic can always get out, a combination of fastest response normally, so that we can kind of test all of the links and see which one gives us the quickest route out to the internet. But having that built into the firmware, so that's that last kind of ditch attempt that if everything goes wrong and the in-control connection is lost, it tries every connection and every SIM on every cellular modem until it gets reconnected. If you rely on in-control, that would be pretty neat. And I think that would save truck rolls and support headaches in the future. So I'm all for it.
I think we're saying we can achieve that now with outbound policy, but there's a lot of configuration there and knowledge to make that happen. To have a tick box to say, forcibly finding control through any means you wish using these cellular connections, that might be enough. But this is on the forum. Again, if that resonates with anybody, search it out, find it, put your comments. They will be read. People do look at these. We look at these. And again, if you've got anything that you want us to focus on, do let us know.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Quickly want to highlight as well, there will be a Peplink podcast part of the forum. So there will be a place where you can ask us all of those questions. So keep your eyes out on the forum. If you're not registered on the forum yet, please do. Okay.
Well, Martin, I want to thank you for coming along. It's been absolutely brilliant to have your insight to all things Peplink, and we look forward to having you again on the podcast again soon. I know you've got to dash off for a meeting yourself.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure and a joy, and I look forward to the next time.
Great.
I look forward to a catch-up later.
All right.
Take care, Martin.
Have a good day.
That was an exciting podcast episode, Jerry.
Yes. Always lovely to talk to Martin. Well, I think it's really great. And also, I'm really looking forward to the special episodes that we are going to record for 8.5.2. I really cannot wait until we can do another bingo of the release notes. So, stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe as always. You can find us on Spotify now as well. So, if you have any questions again, let us know in the comments down below. And we will see you the next time. Thank you, Adam.
Take care all. Bye-bye.